I want you to imagine a task that was considered a graveyard for careers. For 3 decades, the brightest minds at the biggest corporations, RCA, General Electric, Panasonic, chased the same prize. A semiconductor crystal the size of a grain of sand that could glow bright blue. They had billions of dollars. They had thousands of researchers, and they all failed. The consensus was absolute. It cannot be done in this century. And then, one lone engineer, working inside a small, unknown chemical company on the island of Shikoku, ignored by the experts and mocked by his peers, cracked the code. This single breakthrough didn't just give us a new colored light. It unlocked the modern world. The screen you are watching this on, the efficient lighting in your home, the very backbone of the internet. This is not just a story about luck. It is a story about 3 impossible locks and the only man stubborn enough to forge a key. In the 1960s, we conquered red light. By the 70s, we had green. But without blue, the LED was trapped. It was nothing more than a tiny indicator dot on a calculator or a stereo. To replace the incandescent light bulb, which is basically just a heater that accidentally emits some light, we needed the full spectrum. We needed white. And to get white, you must have blue. But blue was the impossible color. Why? Think of an LED like a cliff edge. Electrons run to the edge and jump off. A small jump releases low energy, red light. A medium jump, green light. But blue? Blue is a canyon. It requires a massive leap from a dizzying height, about 2.7 electron volts. To build a cliff that high, you need a material that is incredibly strong, pure and stable. For 30 years, every material we tried simply crumbled under the stress of that fall. By the late 1980s, the scientific community had given up. They declared the blue LED a dead end. But Shuji Nakamura did something strange. He chose the material that everyone else had already abandoned, gallium nitride. He faced the first lock, the foundation. To grow a crystal, you need a base substrate. The industry standard was sapphire. But trying to grow gallium nitride on sapphire is an architectural nightmare. Imagine trying to build a perfect Lego wall, but you are forced to snap it onto a Duplo base. The studs simply do not line up. There is a 16% mismatch. When you force the atoms together, the structure twists and cracks. The result is a microscopic ruin filled with billions of defects per square centimeter. Nakamura spent years failing. He lived in the lab. He modified his equipment by hand, welding and rewiring. He went to the University of Florida to learn the process, but was treated like an outsider without a PhD. When he returned to Japan, he decided to ignore the textbooks. He realized the problem wasn't just the crystal. It was the wind. Inside the reactor, the gas needed to build the crystal was too light. It kept floating away like smoke from a chimney, never settling on the surface to build anything. So he did what no one else dared. He rebuilt the reactor with a second nozzle, a downward jet, that physically pinned the gas against the surface. He forced the atoms into submission. He changed the chaotic turbulence into a smooth laminar flow. Suddenly, The chaotic smoke became a perfect glass-like mirror. Lock 1 opened. But nature is stubborn. Even with a perfect crystal, the material was electrically dead. It wouldn't light up. This was lock 2, the invisible enemy. The culprit was hydrogen, tiny atoms from the ammonia gas used in the process. These hydrogen atoms were acting like saboteurs, clogging the microscopic holes where the electricity needed to flow. It was like trying to run a marathon with stones in your shoes. The experts at the time used expensive electron beams to clear the path. Nakamura looked at the problem and found a solution so simple it was elegant. Heat. He simply baked the crystal. At roughly 400 degrees, the hydrogen let go. It evaporated. The stones fell out of the shoes, and the current could finally run free. Lock 2 opened. Now his bosses were furious. They ordered him to stop. Gallium nitride has no future, they said. Stop wasting our money. He worked in secret. He worked on weekends. Because he still had lock 3, efficiency. A blue LED that barely glows is useless. It needs to shine. He needed to trap the energy inside the crystal so it wouldn't escape as heat. He had to build a quantum trap, layers of crystals so thin and precise that they caught the electrons and forced them to become light. This is engineering at the atomic scale. In 1993, alone in his lab, he flipped the switch. It wasn't just a faint glow. A brilliant, piercing blue light flooded the room. It was blinding. He hadn't just made a blue LED. He had made one 100 times brighter than anything the giants at GE or Sony had ever dreamed of. Lock 3 opened. And his reward? For patents that would generate billions of dollars in revenue and revolutionize the electronics industry, his company gave him a bonus of 20,000 yen, about $180, less than the price of a good dinner. It was a betrayal, but Nakamura fought back. He sued his former employer in a landmark case that shook Japanese corporate culture. He eventually settled for millions, but the money wasn't the point. The point was respect. In 2014, justice was finally served when he stood in Stockholm to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics. Now, look around you. Really look. The white light in your office ceiling? That is Nakamura's blue LED, coated with a yellow phosphor. The screen of your smartphone? Blue LEDs. By switching the world from old bulbs to LEDs, we have saved gigatons of CO2 emissions. We have lit up villages in Africa and India using nothing more than a solar panel and a battery, something impossible with old light bulbs. Shuji Nakamura proved something that every great scientist knows, but often forgets. Impossible is often just a consensus among people who are using the wrong tools. He didn't just invent a light. He showed us that when the whole world says a door is locked, sometimes you just need to go into the garage and build your own key. A true rebel.